Starlink internet is one of the best options for people that live in rural or remote areas, but unfortunately most of those places also have a ton of trees like I do. The Starlink satellite dish needs direct clear access to the sky, so that gives you two options. You can either cut down a bunch of trees, or you can mount that satellite dish up higher. Now many people are going to choose to put it on top of the roof, but for me I didn't really like that option. I didn't want to drill extra holes in my roof, so I went in another direction. I installed my own tower, and I'm going to put that Starlink dish right on the top. And doing it this way is going to give me a ton of advantages. That dish is going to be up super high, and it's going to have a fully unobstructed view of the sky. I can also climb this tower. The sides of that thing are actually a ladder, so if I need to replace the dish or do any kind of a fix, I can just climb right up. But I'm also planning to install some other antennas on this same tower, one for HDTV, some cellular boosters, and who knows what I'm going to put on this thing in the future. But enough talk, let's get on with the project. And I also want to give a special thank you to Rental HQ, who supplied me with some of the equipment in this video that made this job a lot easier. Once you put that antenna in the ground, it's going to be pretty permanent, so you want to make sure you put it in the right place. Now I've got many parts of my yard that are open, but they're not all facing the northeast view of the sky, and that's what Starlink needs. But I needed to do some testing, so all you've got to do is set up your Starlink dish and see what kind of signal it gets, and it's also going to tell you what kind of obstructions get in the way. Now you've got to get yourself an antenna. Now a lot of people will just buy used telephone pole, but those things are never going to be tall enough for most rural settings. I needed between 30 and 40 feet. And the antenna you're looking at here, I paid just $100 for. It's a Roan 25 antenna. It's probably 40 years old, but this thing is super strong. Go on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. You want to look up ham radio antenna, CB antenna, or just look up Roan 25. Be ready to act quick. I actually missed out on a couple of these where they were given away for free. Now it's time to start digging, so I need to clear out some space, and I'm not going to use any kind of special tools. I'm just going to use my post hole digger. And keep in mind, I'm just sharing with you guys how I installed this tower. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people that are going to tell me I did this thing wrong, messed it up, or I didn't follow some sort of rule. If you want to put in your own tower, make sure you check with your building department and understand all the rules and guidelines before you start. And be sure that you call DigSafe before you do any kind of excavation in your yard, because you don't really know what might be down there. I dug that hole down around 48 inches, and that was going to work out perfect for my installation, but you've got to remember my tower is also going to be braced against the garage. Anytime that you brace an antenna against a building, it totally changes how much concrete and how big the hole has to be. You've got an antenna that's going to be freestanding, you're going to need a lot more concrete, and if it gets really tall, say over 30 to 40 feet, you're even going to need to use things called guy wires. I'm not going to need that stuff in my install because of the bracing against the garage and the fact the tower is only going to be about 38 feet tall. It's also a good idea to put down some gravel just to give you a little bit of drainage at the bottom of the tower legs. Next, I put that first section of antenna tower into the hole, and this is where I almost made one of the biggest mistakes of this project. Remember, these sections go into one another, so they've got a male and a female side. You need to make sure that the male end is always pointing up, and if I had put that male end into the concrete, this would have been a total disaster. Next, you want to make absolutely sure that everything is level and secure the tower in position if you think it's going to move. And now it's time for the concrete. Now the stuff I'm using doesn't require any mixing. You just open up the bag, pour it in dry, and then you add the water on top. It soaks into the concrete and it should fast set rock hard. And because this hole is so deep, I didn't want to just pour all the bags in at once because I kind of thought the water might not be able to get to the bottom. So I poured in about 4 bags at a time, then sprayed them with water to get everything to set up, and then I could go ahead and add some more concrete on top. But once I was done with those 11 bags, they didn't nearly fill up the hole, so I had to go back to the store and I bought 15 more bags. And it was a lot of work hauling this concrete around, but for the most part I just dumped it in the hole, added the water on top, and within an hour this tower was already feeling rock solid. I wanted to make that tower look a little bit better and treat the rust spots. Now it's made of galvanized metal, but unfortunately they've also spray painted it, so that's going to create a little bit of a problem for me. So I started by kind of grinding off any loose rust, and then I used this product that's called cold galvanizing compound. It's kind of like galvanization in a spray can. Then I'm going to spray paint the entire tower, and I picked a dark gray that's kind of similar to the color of the Starlink antenna. With my concrete cured, I'm ready to add another section to the tower. Now these each weigh about 50 pounds, and they're a little bit odd to handle because they are so long. So to make it a little bit easier, I stuck it in the back of my ATV just to give me a bit more height while I'm setting it in place. And these tower sections are super tight. It's a precise fit. Once you get them started, you're going to need to get some sort of a clamp, squeeze each section a little bit. You've also got to get the holes on those sections to line up perfectly, but fortunately there's an easy tip. Grab one of your steel punches or some sort of an awl and drive it right into the holes. Now once it gets in there, just wiggle it back and forth and you'll eventually get the holes to line up perfectly. Now you'll be able to insert your bolts easily. Next I went ahead and assembled the top of the antenna tower to the next section. Now you can see a close up here of how it all works. I'd also recommend applying some sort of an anti-seize compound onto that male end. That'll just kind of lube things up and make it go in a lot easier. Anytime you stick in a big piece of metal up into the sky, you want to make sure it's protected from lightning, and that means you want to ground it. Now there are tons of resources out there better than this video, but this is how it works in a nutshell. First, you're going to buy yourself a grounding rod. These are the same ones that you use in your house for electrical work. You're going to drive it deep into the ground. Now we need to electrically connect your tower to the grounding rod, and for that we're going to use these 2 ground clamps. Remember that tower was painted. You'll need to grind off some of that paint or coating to make sure that clamp gets a good electrical connection. And with our clamps in place, all we've got to do is add the wire, and here I'm using a bare 6-gauge copper wire. Keep in mind that bare metal is definitely going to rust out, so once everything's tightened up, I'd recommend spraying that with some sort of a Flex Seal or a rubberized coating. But there's still one problem. I've got to install 2 more sections of tower, and originally I thought I was just going to use a ladder, but once I considered that a little bit more, I realized that was a really stupid idea, and I decided I wanted to rent some equipment to make this a little bit easier. And I'm still new to New Hampshire, and I don't normally rent anything like this, so I didn't know who had one of these in stock. So instead, by using rentalhq.com, they find who's got this equipment, and it was as simple as making a phone call. I decided to have them deliver it. Now you could pick it up if you have a truck or a trailer, but this made the job a lot easier, and you get to meet with the person. They're going to show you how to use the equipment. They can answer any questions, and I never used a lift before, and I was honestly a little bit afraid of going up so high, but the guy gave me some great tips, showed me how to use every feature on the machine. If you've ever gone up on a ladder and hated it, this machine is a game changer. You just push some levers, you can go up in the air as high as you want, and you feel so much more secure. I was able to carefully align the bucket, and I could bring that section down right onto the poles. And renting one of these lifts can vary in price. They can go between $300 and $500 a day. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but if you're putting up a tower that you might have for the next 20 years, it's probably a good investment. You're going to see at the end of the video, while I had this thing, I also used it to do some tree trimming, and I even changed a couple of light bulbs in my house that I was never going to be able to get up to. And now thanks to the help of the lift, the tower is fully in place, and all that remains is that I need to bolt together that final section. Now I'm ready to install the Starlink antenna, but before I do that, I've got to use this adapter. The bottom part of the post on Starlink is kind of a proprietary mount, but you want to adapt it to fit on a normal steel post, and that's exactly what this adapter does. Now that I'm back up on the lift, I've just got to install the adapter and tighten those Allen screws until everything is secure. Now I've just got to install the Starlink dish, and that's easy to do. It just slides right into the adapter until it clicks. And with the dish in place, all I've got to do is route that cable through the inside of the tower, and it's a good idea to nylon tie it along the way. But now I need to get that cable at the bottom of the tower into the building. Now there are many different ways to do that, but keep in mind I'm planning to run additional wires and antennas in the future, and this 1.5-inch electrical elbow is going to work perfectly. It's cheap, it's waterproof, and if you follow my instructions, it's also going to be rodent proof. Start by opening up the housing, and you're going to want to drill at least 2 or 3 holes into the housing itself, because we're going to screw this thing directly to the building. Now use a hole saw to drill the access hole, insert the elbow, make sure that everything fits, but then you'll want to apply some sealant around that hole and also behind it. Make sure everything's level, then screw it right against the structure, and it's still a good idea to put some more sealant around the top. Now I kind of made a mess when I first did it here, but then just wipe off the excess. You can use a rag, and the final result should look pretty good. Now 1.5 inches is a big hole, and that's going to allow that Starlink cable, even with the end of it, to go right in easily. But you don't want to get anything on that connector, so it's a good idea to put some painter's tape or a Ziploc bag in it just to protect it until it's finally through the hole. Once you've got your cable into the building, we've got to take care of that hole in the bottom, but remember you might want to make changes or add cables in the future, so you want to use this stuff called duct seal. This stuff will never dry out. You can even mold it right around the cable. So here I'm going to press it into the hole, squeeze it around the ends, and this will completely seal this. It's going to prevent mice or bugs getting in, but it's also removable, so if you need to change something in the future, you can pull it out, remold it back into position, and it will be completely sealed. And this access cover they give you also has a weatherproof gasket. You just need to screw it back into position, and you're ready to go. Now having the wire exposed like that could be a problem, so if you want you could bury it under the ground, add additional conduit to the tower. For the moment this is going to work for me until I add the additional antennas, and then once I get them all together, I may add some conduit or put something over the top just to make sure that nobody can easily damage them. And with our wire installed and our dish working on top, this install is complete. All that's left is to leave the thing powered on. It takes about 4 to 6 hours, and then Starlink will report back if it detects any obstructions or it has any issues picking up a signal. You can still see that there are some small obstructions on the edge of the horizon, but they're not causing the dish any problems at all. When I had the dish operating at ground level, you can see in this log it was getting obstructed literally every minute, and that was going to cause major internet problems. My tower's been up and running now for about 2 weeks, and I'm absolutely thrilled with the result. It's working perfectly, and now I've got a perfect place to mount TV antennas or any type of cellular boosters that I want in the future. One thing you might be wondering is, why didn't I just install this thing on the roof of the garage? Well, the problem is that roof is about 15 feet further back than the tower, and I was going to get a lot more interference from those trees, and it was never going to give me a clear signal. If you need to use Starlink and you've got a lot of obstructions, putting up your own tower or a pole could be a great option. The point of this video was to show you what I did in my install, and that it is working well for me, and I'm hoping to enjoy this thing for years to come. And be sure to check out rentalhq.com if you're looking for any type of equipment. They not only connect you to the right place, they've also got helpful guides that can teach you how to use this equipment to get the best results possible. And if you like this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're not already for more videos coming up.